Ole comes from the flamenco dance. And it comes from bullfighting too, because they say ole when the bull comes. You have like 5 or 6 hours in a club, and you can meet a lot of people. In one night, you can have 3 or more dates.
Parents get together and they either decide who you're going to marry or they set you up on dates. And then it's called chastagari, which means the man comes to the woman's house and he sits down with her parents. And they have like tea and cakes and fruits. The girl has to peel cucumbers for him, making sure not to peel too much skin. So like if she peels too much skin from the cucumber, then she's a spendthrift. Everything's judged by like that meeting.
You know, in Japan, we don't really go out casually. And man find a woman, and then if he thinks the girl is attracted, he somehow approached to her and then, can I go out with you? Like that. That's how we start dating. But in Japan, it's a little different. It's more official.
Courtship, I would say, is very romantic. Men bring flowers to the dates, especially, let's say, the first 3 to 5 dates. They will bring flowers, and it's a tradition.
Usually you hang out in school and after school, but if you want to go out later, you definitely have to ask parents' permissions. Kids in Austria, especially when you are like 14, 15, 16, they are kind of protected by their parents. It's a conservative country. We have like strong family roots.
Israel is a very open country. Just people meet people and then they fall in love or not.
It was rather confusing because I was European, but I had some friends who were Uruguayan. And then the only way they could meet young men was formally. And they would come to their house, I think it was Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. Between 7 and 9, they could come and visit. And there was something called the zaguán. The zaguán is like an entry to the house. They could kind of be there for a few minutes in the entry to the house, and they had to sit in the living room with a chaperone. And that's what courtship was like.
There are 2 types. Arranged marriages, which is more common. At the same time, love marriages. Arranged marriages, they kind of goes through the parents' process and like, hey, okay, we are such and such family, we have this or we whatnot, and we like to marry your daughter. And love marriage, yeah, you date for several months or years, and then eventually they come out and tell their parents.
About courting, we're pretty liberal-minded, I would say, as a society. In my personal experience, I think that Italy's courtship sort of style, or whatever you want to call it, it's quite good. It's very direct, it's very easy to meet people. It's not strange to be approached by somebody in a bar, in a nightclub, start a conversation and get along and move on.
There was no such thing as a boyfriend-girlfriend kind of a courtship. That you actually had to be engaged and then your courtship, quote-unquote, began. The whole boyfriend-girlfriend thing kind of does happen a little bit more now than in the past. But there's almost an expectation that, you know, if you are a boyfriend or girlfriend, then eventually that should lead to engagement or marriage.
When people meet in Austria, it's on a much more intimate and deeper level. That's why the relationship status comes in quicker than in other countries. When you meet somebody in Austria, you really want to get to know him, and people usually are real and pretty authentic.
I don't think there's anything like official that we go, hang on, okay, we're officially boyfriend, girlfriend. It's just something that kind of happens.
Our women are like straightforward. She'll be like, if we're sleeping together and we didn't start this relationship with you saying, hey, I'm married, or hey, I have a girlfriend, you better believe we're together.
In South Africa, if you're gonna kiss somebody, you serious and you wanna see how far this can go, and you're going for a relationship, you know.
I don't think there is a relationship as its own entity, which is actually what allows you to speak about the relationship and have that talk about the relationship. No, you're just in it in Italy.
It's not a culture that talks a lot about sex. Growing up, it's not an open culture. I mean, I remember having my first period, and it was this big hush up thing in school you're not supposed to talk about.
In South Africa, it's you meet someone and you kind of hammer it out. There never really has been do's and don'ts. Nobody really ever spoke to anybody. People don't speak about it.
I have never been told. Also, that only you'll see kind of, which is not a bad thing, I think. It's, you'll experience and you'll see. We had a special 1 week camp with a priest. We were there and everybody was wondering what's that all about. And he really, as a priest, told us how you make love to a woman, how you make foreplay.
All the laws on sex and stuff with Judaism is all written out in the Torah, so it's all there.
Kids go to church with the parents, they see what the parents' values are. So you don't really ask your parents, Mom, what do you think I should do in this case? It's usually a taboo. So I think you probably mimic what you see in your parents and in your kind of close area, and that's where you get.
Sex is not looked as a shameful act in Italy. I think that's another oddity for a Catholic country. It's not really shameful. It's seen, I say, largely as a beautiful thing and really not a problem that way.
I think we've never had a problem with our sexuality per se. I think we're a very loving community of people, and I don't think that has ever been a problem. In fact, my mother always said one of the most precious things that a man or a woman can do is to make love.
Maybe in the beginning of the relationship, they might do it like every day. And then when it's, after a while or when it fades, maybe a couple times a week or once a week.
I don't know, because that first boyfriend, we probably did it 24 times in one day. I always have that to compare to, and so that was my ideal, and I've never really been able to find a guy since that can keep up with that kind of pace, and yet that's what I want. I want that back. I don't want this like snail pace once a week bullshit.
It's kind of creepy to me if you're romantic and whatnot. throughout the whole day and for the rest of your life.
Once they stopped having children, the men just went off with younger women and there probably wouldn't be much.
If you're from a really good home, a really Christian home, it is expected that maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, very early sometimes.
In Iran, you can't really get married without asking the permission of the parents. The groom will always go ask the permission, they will go ask for the hand of the bride from the family.
Almost like a business merger in a way.
Usually people will date for about a year, maybe 2. There's a lot of actually shotgun weddings, when a woman gets pregnant and then they have to get married.
In India, the family is a really big part of the relationship. So, even after a girl and a guy get married, generally the girl will move into the guy's home where he lives with his mom and his dad.
Marriage with Judaism, like the woman has to cover her hair when she gets married, and that is just, it's too hot and itchy. I hate it.
It would be the US and Britain, I think it's just a Western culture, television and from what we have seen, movies.
We definitely think that Europe. You hear about Ibiza, for an example, like, oh yeah, if you go to Ibiza, everyone is just crazy, like even sharing couples.
The Spain and the French, the way they talk and the way they kind of put the words together.
Greek people, and the men are notoriously just bad when it comes to fidelity. It's like they're like, what's wrong? What's the problem? It's nothing. Nothing's wrong with having 3-4 women. If anything, the problem is, why would you expect them to be with one woman? That's a problem for them.
We definitely think the Italians are the lovers of Europe.
I would say in Italy, we think that Nordic countries, are very promiscuous. The Swedish girls are famous in Italy for sleeping with anybody.
Probably maybe African countries, could be Russia.
Americans are very more sexual, definitely, and I think we think a little, that more.
I'd probably say Europe. I wouldn't say Israel. I've lived in Israel. I'd say Israel, you would get really cut out or something.
Oh, it's very obvious. The countries that are open, democratic countries, Western world, what we say, how do you call it? The highest rate of it. Muslim countries, for example, or the Jewish Hasidic, they don't have cheating at all.
They think everywhere in the world that isn't them, and even within them, like whoever's not as religious, is wrong.
Saved messages. Main menu. Listen 1.
I was really hoping that you would pick up because I miss you.
And I'm probably going to regret the message I'm leaving right now, but I really felt for you.
You called the cops on me for no reason. What was I supposed to say?
وما زبطت وجرب هيك لأنه الأصل أساسا إيش الطريقة
For me, cheating has been always if you kiss somebody else.
Technically speaking, you would imagine a affair would have sex involved.
You are a fucking psycho fucking path liar hypocrite. I didn't fall in fucking
Touching or anything that's intimate.
Actually, it's so funny in Russia, you call your mistress lover. Oh yeah. Любовник is for guy and любовница is for girl.
The word for mistress is lover, as if this is the woman you love. And the word for isha and baal is possession. Your wife you own, and you're in love with your mistress.
We would say liebhaber, lover.
An amante, it means they have a lover. Whether they are in a relationship or not, they just have this on the side.
La otra. It's like the other.
To Sancho means like is the other third person.
They call la querida, la otra.
We call her a piranha, which is piranha in Portuguese, and basically means, she's like man-eater.
Imagibon, machite, magibon.
Dhoka. Dhoka is more like cheating.
Waki. Waki means cheating. 欺骗 in Mandarin just basically means lying.
Called having one on the sly.
Fremdgehen, which means like literally translated is like go with stranger.
A guy who has a wife who cheats on him is called cornuto, which means he has antlers, like a reindeer has antlers. Like you don't know it, but everyone else can see it. It's like on top of your head, it's right there.
When the women get angry, they'll call these women sketel. Sketel meaning a dirty woman.
Nigolsan means number 2.
It's a pilegesh. It's like a mistress, concubine. They use the word concubine a lot. We like to use the word bitch a lot in our community, unfortunately.
They have a giant red light district in Bombay.
We have a certain towns which are known as sex town.
People in Austria, if they want to like have an affair, they either go to a hotel, or the other option is like take the guy or girl to their own house, unless the spouse is there, so that could be a problem.
I remember in college there was a hotline for concubines for the really Orthodox Jews, which I thought was crazy, but apparently there were loopholes in the law. According to Jewish law, for 2 weeks out of the month, when the woman has her period, they're not allowed to touch or have sex. So there's another like little law somewhere where a man could go get pleasured by another woman just to take care of that like 2-week period where they can't touch. They're very secretive about it. People don't know what's going on.
They had to do it in discreet fashion. I mean, they couldn't bring them to a party. My father became a little bit of an outcast because he did it more openly.
If they find out that their husband is having an affair, they will end up accepting it. The other way around will be the same way, even more so. I know a girl who's been a mistress for most of her life. Her friends know it, his friends don't know it. They turn a blind eye.
The saying, you can cheat on your wife, but you can't cheat on your mistress, is a French saying. I think, in a way, exemplifies what they think about it. It's kind of okay to have affairs.
It's not viewed good. I mean, the men who do it are okay with it, but it's not something that's condoned or accepted or applauded.
I have a friend presently. When I was just visiting 4 months ago, she said, "Oh, you'll never guess what happened." I said, "What?" She said, "I'm seeing someone, and he's married, and, he's a pastor."
Affairs are absolutely taboo. They're not talked about, they're not accepted, they're not acknowledged. Going through a divorce or separation is the biggest failure.
It's accepted, and the culture is just not talked about widely. A lot of times, powerful men, rich men, have more than one mistresses. I mean, it's a status thing.
Men and women are not equal in Ukraine. They will look at you up and down, appraising you like a horse. It's very macho.
It's like more of a macho thing to have another one in the side.
If you're not going to be boasting about your adultery with, people that'll get you in trouble, but when you're with your boys or something like that, of course.
If it was for just men, if he has men friends and they're very close to him, and if they know that he's having an extramarital affair, they might just think that, wow, he has another, relationship.
Guys always kind of boast about oh, I slept with so many women. If a woman has too much partners, she's a slut. If a guy has a lot of partners, he's a macho. I mean, it's everywhere, I guess.
It's okay if a guy does it, but if the woman does it, it's the end of the world for her.
I think it's a male-dominated society. If the female cheats, I'm not saying that you have grounds to kill her, but, you know, there's like that sort of attitude.
I think it's always been our community. They're both wrong. They're both wrong. They're both equally as wrong. There's enough blame to go around.
I started to date this guy. Yeah, we were like boyfriend and girlfriend. But then I met this guy in a chat.
It's a funny story, but he was actually a doctor, and he was one of our doctors.
I just felt that I just want to go out and meet another woman and have a relationship.
And then, you know, we started to talk and we liked each other, sharing pictures.
I had a business and he started coming around as if he were going to buy something and, you know, visiting more and more and more. There's a time when it's like, okay, you can't buy the whole shop.
So we were very drunk and it started off with kissing, and then when the lights went up, I ended up going back to his and doing what people do in bed at night.
We started meeting like in back streets, just kind of talking in his car, but that was a huge risk. So we were really, really forced to go to a motel. And of course, once you're in that situation, it doesn't take many visits there to get to the sexual part.
And then I started to have 2 relationships at the same time. But because the other guy was from another city, then I was like...
The longer it kept going, the more ashamed I became. This is not a little fling anymore. Now I'm really attached to this person. And then it got even worse because we became family friends. Now his wife knew me, my husband knew him, and the kids knew each other. It just got worse and worse, and it got to a point where I really had to make a decision.
It was a disaster at the end, but because I had to choose, because I wasn't feeling good at the end, and then I had to choose, and I made the wrong decision.
What do? Do I end my marriage because I'm not finding fulfillment? Is that a good enough reason to leave my home and my children and everything that we do have? Or do I run the risk of my children one day finding out I'm an adulteress and of hurting this man horribly if he finds out I'm an adulteress? What's going to hurt him more? Very, very unfortunately, his wife found out. One day we were speaking on the phone and she picked up an extension at his house and heard part of the conversation, and then that was that. I was just crushed for her. I never meant to invade her life like I did. She was actually decent enough, or maybe wise enough of a woman, to not tell my husband, because maybe she was afraid to have me be a free woman as well.
When I was 20 till I was like 27, for about 7 years, I was a stripper in South Africa. I had my own agent. I was the only straight male doing what I was doing. I did 3 or 4 shows a week. Every night I would have a different chick. So you have ladies' night and there's 500 ladies, chicks. I would go in and I'd do my strip show, and then afterwards I would just walk around and it's like, you, come here, baby. And then I'll just take her home, and you know, periodically you would run into the husband. It happened one night. I take this chick home. I hear a car pull in, you know, it's like, it's my husband, you gotta go out. And it's like, then I'm at the front window, you know what I mean?
I was suicidal. She wouldn't take me back. I think it cut to my core of, I am worth something. Like, I deserve a second look. I was going to cheat on her, and I could feel it, and it was going to happen, and I was like, you don't want me to cheat on you? I won't, but we can't be together anymore. She's like, listen, do whatever you got to do. Just don't tell me. And I was like, And I suddenly was walking around like, I love my girlfriend. I don't even know why I'd ever cheat on her. This is the most amazing feeling ever. She's so awesome. Why would I don't need anything else. This is great. Next night she calls me. You know, I deserve someone who's gonna stay true to me. If you're gonna be with me, then don't ever cheat on me. Next night, I'm like looking around like, who wants to do this?
I would cheat out of spite, though. If they cheated on me, well then fine, I'm gonna cheat on you. That's what I could see happening.
There are victims here. The hurt in knowing that this has happened and you had no control over it, yet you're right in the middle.
When I was 27, I had a girlfriend and we broke up. Soon after, met her next boyfriend, soon to be her husband, and started a new life. And within 3 months, I saw my life becoming someone else's. And I was devastated. And I looked at the globe and I said, I've got to be somewhere else. And I rotated the globe and I chose the other side of the world. And I said, I'm going there. And on the flight, next to me was this beautiful girl. And we started chatting over the flight. The 10 hours in Zurich together, we fell in love. The affair started right away. She met my parents and the affair was really intense. I knew everything about her and I felt that she really understands me more than anyone else. She was gonna go back to Los Angeles after 2 months in Israel. I bought a ticket, and since I was moving to a new country, I had to take a lot of stuff with me. I had a lot of things, like many clothes, many books, and I couldn't take all of that into my 2 suitcases, but she didn't have much, and I asked her, Danielle, would you mind taking some of my stuff, like basically taking another suitcase? And there's something I need to tell you. And I said, what do you mean? Like, I didn't know what to come. She says, the reason I can't take your stuff with me is that as we land in Los Angeles, my boyfriend is gonna wait for me at the airport. She never mentioned having a boyfriend, and I really didn't think that she had one when she constantly called me her boyfriend and planned our life together as we arrived in Los Angeles. She says, look, he was my boyfriend for 5 years now. I don't really see him. We should have broken up long ago, but I didn't break up with him because I didn't want to do it over the phone. So I am going to break up with him. I want it to happen slowly, so why don't you give me a few days? And when we land, she kisses me and she says, from now on, I'm going separately. And I see Danielle, my girlfriend, at the other side, being approached by a young guy. They kiss, and I'm looking at that from far away, and I say, oh my God, that's my girlfriend with her boyfriend. And then they walked away in his car, and I took a cab to a little lonely motel where I was starting my days. And basically, for a few days, I was the other guy. I was not allowed to call Danielle. She would only call me. Every day there was something else, like, well, I can't break up with him today, one more day, today is not a good day, he's very, very busy and I don't want to break him, and I just see him, and every day there was another reason. And after 3 weeks, she came to me and she said, I'm not going to break up with him. The main reason is the following. I'm going back to Chicago at the end of the summer. There's no reason to break up with him or to kind of break your heart. I'm going to be away from the two of you, so I'm just leaving you the way it is. And she left. And here I was in the same town with the other boy, waiting for our girlfriend to come back from Chicago in a year. And after a few days or a few weeks, I decided enough and I ended. I moved on with my life. When she suddenly chatted with me on computer and said, I broke up with my boyfriend and now I'm single. And I said, I've been waiting for this to happen for a while. I'm coming to Chicago now. I want to see you. She said, I can't wait to see you. 3 days before my scheduled arrival in Chicago, I took a car and I drove overnight to see the love of my life. And I arrived in Chicago around 5 a.m. I should just wait outside for a few hours until like it's 8:30, and then I'll knock on her door and surprise her arriving 3 days in advance. And so I did. I stayed in my car and fell asleep. The moment I woke up by chance and I saw her coming out with her little dog and another man. This was not her boyfriend, her ex-boyfriend now. It wasn't me. It was a third guy. They kiss in a way that makes it clear that he is definitely a third guy in the story. And so I went straight away. She was very surprised and all white when I approached her. She said, what are you doing here? I thought you were supposed to be arriving in 3 days. And I said, yeah, I made it a little earlier because I wanted to see you. She introduced me to her other guy and we shook hands. And she started mumbling something, said, I have to explain to you. I said, it's okay. and I walked away and flew back. After a while, agreed to talk to her and listen to the story. She explained to me that apparently there were 8 guys all over the US. Basically every city, she had another boy.
I think everybody has been disappointed in somebody that they had faith in at one point or another. I have been disappointed in somebody I had faith with, a man that I lived with for 3 years. I had faith that he would change.
I married when I was 31. I thought he will be my, only the partner for my life. He doesn't want to go out. So I was going out myself. And then quite often I came home really late, very often. And he thought I was cheating on him. So, he started sleeping on the couch by himself. Well, we're not sleeping together, and then you don't want to have a family. So what's the point? What are we doing here? We should be just friends. So we divorced.
Are you friends with him now?
No, he doesn't want to talk to me. I don't know where he lives.
I did lose faith in my husband, who was the preacher's kid, in terms of his ability to care for us as a family in the way that he should have cared for us. At that point, believed I had to separate myself from him, which meant my children were separated from him.
I was feeling the same way too, but I guess I was putting all the guilt on him. It was just a lot easier to put him in the spotlight and said, oh, you should have had faith and you should have been stronger, while I was feeling the same.
I used to have a lot of faith on other people, and then I started looking at it a different way, like how much does that really work? I really don't have faith that they're going to do the right thing. I trust that they are going to do what they really want to do.
In Mexico, there are not like punishment for adulteries.
Infidelity, as far as I know, is not against the law. But if you're married and if you commit infidelity, it's grounds for a divorce by law.
You have to be separated for 2 years, and then you can start divorce proceedings. They don't make it particularly easy to get divorced. Family means a lot in Italy. That's probably one of the reasons why kids want to escape it. It's a Catholic country, after all.
If you are caught as an adulterer, then you will get stoned to death. And it's usually women. That usually does not happen to men, because men cannot be adulterers for some reason. It's always the women. I've never seen a man being stoned for being an adulterer. I've never even read about it.
I know that women have terrible consequences if they do, but I don't know of any legal. I mean, they would be ostracized. If a woman would have an affair, she'd probably lose her children. If they would see each other, it would have to be sort of hidden.
There's no capital punishment or anything like that, but the extreme could be the divorce.
The younger generation, the divorce rate is higher because that's the way life is. You have more possibilities, you have more opportunities. I'm not sure which is better, to be honest with you. I don't know.
If a father is unfaithful and the son witnesses that unfaithfulness, I think it definitely gets passed on.
People are brought up with a certain mentality, certain values. They see how their fathers behave or mothers.
I was born to a single mother as a consequence of an adulterous affair that she had had. It had an impact on me emotionally, because I didn't have a relationship with my father because he went back to his wife and they remained together, and she did not want me to be involved in her family unit.
My father, when I was young, he went on many business trips. And my son got to meet some of my father's friends. And they bragged to my son that my father, when he came, went with all these women.
My father had a woman, but my mother didn't know about it. And then finally she figured out, and then she hired a detective, but she couldn't divorce because my father said, I don't want to divorce. If you want to leave, just go without any money, nothing, don't take it, nothing, just leave. Of course she couldn't do it, so she just stayed.
When I was younger, I had a hard time approaching girls.
I was really kind of openly sexual kid and like kissing, and my mom caught me and she's like, oh, what are you doing? You're just a kid, blah, blah, blah. And I felt so bad after that, and I just kind of stopped. Just like build these walls around myself, kind of put these limits on myself.
It was rough. It was very rough. I got in trouble a lot for trying to talk about it. I got expelled from school because I talked about it.
Italians are not shy. When I first became attracted to men, I was attracted to everything that had nothing to do with Italy. I wanted to just get away from everything and be left alone.
I was afraid to talk to guys. I went to a girls' school from a very young age.
I was always terrified of girls. Any girl, well, not really any girl, but, just the one that I wanted. I thought that I could easily get the 6s and the 7s, but the 8s and the 9s, were out of my league.
I think another way I counter it is go for girls who I don't think will reject me, or go for girls who I know will reject me. The surface level is fear that it's not going to work out, and I don't want them to get hurt. When I meet someone, and as soon as they start talking about a traditional relationship, I'm like, I'm going to horribly disappoint you.
One day I said, I think from day one, I never felt that I was attracted to you as much as you are to me. That day she said, we have to break up. Very sad, but she ended up saying, in a way, there's imbalance between us.
The girl that I was with loved me more than I loved her. I told her that. We had to split up. It didn't work. It changed my character.
I fall in love with somebody that's not available, and somebody falls in love with me and I go with the relationship, but I'm not available. It's been all along sabotaging, all along through that. My mom always said, two people together, one will always love the other one more. Make sure you're the one that's loved the most.
I have certainly wanted the other person more in almost every single one of my relationships. And it was definitely because I had assigned meaning to me being in a relationship with them. And I wanted them to be like, yeah, I love that guy. So somewhere in myself, it would be like, oh, somebody likes me. If you're alone, you're kind of nobody.
I'm pretty weak around boys. If I'm just starting to go out with someone and maybe you just kind of snuggle up on the sofa or something, I will get very horny and I will have sex with them the first date if I can. My first proper relationship was with this young guy. We were both 18. He was very beautiful and I was probably a little bit obsessed with him, as you would be when, with your first love. This guy went to Amsterdam with a group of his friends and had a really jolly weekend. And when he came back, he called me up on the phone and he said, Amy, I've got something to tell you. I slept with a prostitute. That was it. I couldn't speak to him ever again. I couldn't look at him. I got all the things that he'd ever given me, put them into a box and then sent them to his house. I was truly devastated. I was in a really bad way. And maybe even took me a good year to properly get over it. And I decided to get myself a job. And I responded to an advert in a newspaper for hostess work. It turned out that what they were advertising for was girls to basically would engage in sex, so you were a prostitute. I understood immediately what this was all about, and I even signed myself up for shifts the following week. Turns out I didn't end up doing it and I didn't go, but it was something I kind of had to go through. It was like, because the guy that I loved had been with this woman, I wanted to not be that woman, but I wanted to see or understand more about what it was that could be so attractive or appealing in a woman like that. I had viewed women as, well, that type of woman, like a prostitute or someone, you know, that sells their body, as like a sort of lower person, and yet I was more and more intrigued by it. I almost wanted to imitate it or something. It was a very like strange, twisted period, but that's what I went through. And I think maybe the way I view sex has been really affected by that one experience. Maybe I am a lot more slutty in my behavior.
I have thought whether there are any positive aspects of infidelity.
Maybe the 30-minute fun.
You had something and as you are happy with what you did because it was a good experience.
If they get in love each other, that's really a wonderful thing.
It was a great thing in that it helped me grow as a person in dealing with problems and adversity and guilt.
If there is infidelity, I thought to myself, there is obviously a need to escape. I think some people may be so trapped in their situation that infidelity may be their only way out. It's like creating something really dramatic that allows you to break a pattern and then create change that way.
You have to have boundaries, because otherwise everything would be out of control.
If you have morals, you wouldn't have affairs. If you have affairs, you don't have morals. Yeah, I felt pretty guilty.
You can still be a really good person and have an affair.
Most people go into affairs because it is immoral. Anytime you do something you're not supposed to do, it's exciting. It just is. Which is why I always look at, why am I not supposed to do something?
I believe the word of God, that there's a sanctity to marriage and that you don't go outside of that. You don't violate that.
The thing is, I went into the monastery because I was in love with God. And I never thought I would have another relationship other than with God. And it's very interesting because when you're in a situation like that and you remove sexuality, there's a lot more deeper connection and a lot more work can happen.
Italy is religious in a very interesting way. They don't seem to follow any Catholic principles. You know, people are into adultery, people are into having premarital sex.
We're very strong, religious people, Catholic. That's why, very sneaky, you didn't want it to get caught.
When the Soviet Union was in power for 70 years, religion was not allowed. It was prohibited. But there were still churches and there were still people who were quite religious, but that doesn't mean that they do all the values.
Whether or not you grew up in church, there are certain values that are just instilled that the woman who didn't grow up in church will feel bad about sleeping with a married man.
It's not an extreme religious country like some of the Muslim countries, but religion is a big influence.
The culture is very much religion. On a sexual level, it's conservative because of religion.
If God is watching us, at least we can do is be entertaining. So I do not agree with entire structure. I say the craziness that we live in is craziness enough for me.
It is good to have certain rules that ground you, as long as they are not choking you.
It's just a natural instinct for men to want more. I'm not saying women aren't that way, but it's more prevalent among men. This greed, this need to always be hunting, to be chasing, to have something new.
In society, we always like to do something that it's legal or you can get in real big trouble if you do it.
If you don't have a good line of communication going, they don't understand what you want or what you like, and they're selfish in their ways, I think that turns you off and makes you look for someone who has.
I'm a neuroscientist, working with patients and studying how they behave in conditions like that. A study that I was involved in basically explained how people cheat, why and to what extent. And the studies asked the questions, can we make people cheat in a lab environment? So we can address that and see to what extent people cheat, why do they cheat, what stops them from cheating. And the way it was done first is in the following way. Subjects were invited to the lab, and the lab was a classroom. And they were told you're gonna take a test. The test has 20 questions. And the way it goes is you're gonna have 5 minutes to answer as many questions as you can. It's a very short time for this type of assignments. In the end of the 5 minutes, each of you is gonna come to me, give me his answers sheet. I'm gonna grade your responses, and you're gonna get $10 for each correct response. And people take this test. Usually in 5 minutes, they get about 5 correct answers. They hand their papers, someone rates them, and says, perfect, you got 5 correct answers, here's $50. Some people get only 3, they get $30. Some people get 7, get $70, and so on. That's the control group. Group number 1. Then, leave that aside, comes group number 2. Again, 50 people come to the class, they take the same test, but this time, in the end, they're told something else. They're told, we don't have time to rate all of your exams. So we ask you each to rate his own exam. See how many correct answers you got. Just keep this number, tear the paper apart, shred it and throw it in the garbage. Just come to us and tell us how many correct answers you had, and we're just gonna give you the money. So no one can or will know what you actually got. And suddenly, in this class, the average score is 12, plus minus 2, meaning almost more than double. In this very clean environment, people are cheating. You don't know who, you don't know exactly why, but you know that people cheat when they can. This is the first study that started this kind of set of studies, all leading to our explanation of why people cheat and how it happens. And they cheat by somewhat, but not fully. What do I mean? If you're gonna lie, if I'm asking you to rate yourself and give me a number, why not say you got 20? You can already tell me I got all of them correct and get $200. For some reason, people choose to cheat, but only to some extent. They say they got 12 correct answers, but not all the way. So people apparently have a cap, they have a limit to how much they cheat, which I'm gonna relate in a second to infidelity. Interestingly, if you do the same thing with the 10 Commandments, some people are asked to write them and some people are asked to just tell you how many they remembered. No one cheats. Whether you check, whether you don't, people don't cheat when it's the 10 Commandments. And we ask people in advance, are you religious? Do you believe in God? Most of them say no. But when issues of moral are at hand, people don't cheat. And the bottom line is that we find 3 rules that guide people's cheating. So when you're about to cheat on your wife, there's 3 parameters that guide your decision. Parameter number 1, how likely am I to get caught? You have a girlfriend and you want to sleep with her best friend. The first question you ask yourself is, how likely am I to get caught? How easy is it for her to know? The harder it is to catch you, the more likely you are to cheat. That's parameter number 1. Parameter number 2, if I get caught, what is the punishment? How severe is the punishment? I'm cheating on my girlfriend, but if she catches me, she already told me in advance she would never leave me. So this kind of makes it a little more likely. She told me right away that if she ever knows that I'm even talking to her best friend, she's immediately going to leave me, maybe less likely. And the third parameter, I think, is the most interesting. The third parameter is the following. If I do get caught, how much will it change my perception of myself as an honest person? Meaning, no person thinks of themselves as liars, as cheaters, as people that are not doing something wrong. Everyone have their perception of themselves as a person who does everything right. If you go to jail, most prisoners would find an excuse to explain their behavior as if they did something good. Yes, I did steal, but I did it because my family needed bread and I couldn't do anything else. I was really miserable, I was addicted. Everyone has an explanation that somehow maintains his personality as a good person. That is why people don't say I got 20 questions. They always stop in some level. Because everyone has a perception that helps them maintain themselves as an honest person. So we'll say, I really got only 5 questions correct, but I deserve 12. If I were just like I was a little bit tired from last night, that's why I didn't get all the 12, I deserve the 12. I'm really a person of 12 questions. I just somehow in this particular test did 5. I should just tell them what I really am. Yes, I am going to cheat on my wife, but she means nothing to me, this woman. I'm just doing it because I'm bored with relationship right now, and I'm just doing it to actually help the relationship, because then I'm going to come back to my wife and I'm going to feel better about our relationship. It's going to give me some perspective. Everyone has some way to justify to themselves the way they do things. I know it's bad, I know that my wife is going to be unhappy, and maybe I'm hurting my kids, but they won't catch me. If they would, it would be okay, and I'm still okay with that, because it's not really me.
Probably we just weren't sexually compatible. It was literally, okay, now we're in bed, now is the time, now I'll roll over and do my routine. And the routine was always exactly the same. And now in hindsight and having had other partners, I think that when you're not comfortable with your sexuality and you're kind of embarrassed and you're kind of reserved with yourself, there's no way you're going to be good in bed.
Having an affair is what women are doing to satisfy, I think, a basic desire to be loved, to be held, to feel valued, to feel desired.
In my case, no, it wasn't on me, just me that I'm just like to explore things.
Soy un santo, soy un gran fracaso. eso nunca voy a entender. El money viene y el money va. Familia junta, imposible de ganar. No son perfectos, a veces mal ejemplo. Hay que esperar.